Alright, the FreeFlight Pro version 5.0.1. One of the things that I really like about this is they've got the options for you on the top for your video and your picture selection. So you can switch between video and picture. And with the video settings, you can also enter them while the drone is in air by simply tapping the side, and you can adjust your exposure compensation at the bottom. There you go, that's 1.5 stops of light overexposed, or you can go on the other side, which underexposes it. Now, I shoot mostly underexposed because I have a preference for detail. So if you can see, this sky has a lot more detail now. I like shooting underexposed. And notice that the shutter speed stays the same, it's 30 frames per second. With all the arguments about fast shutter, I don't know how fast it can go because it's not a mechanical shutter. But that's a story for another day. But at the moment you can still underexpose the image digitally and still have that 30 frames per second at f2.3. On the top right hand corner we have the white balance, where you can select your white balance of preference, which will override the automatic white balance. For example, a filament lamp, it's yellow by nature, so it would put in a blue cast, a blue color cast to correct it. And this, I assume it's sunny, so it's a bit warm, and it corrects it by putting in a bit of blue. Cloudy, it would put in a lot more yellow. Yes, correct. So those are the presets which you could use to fly. So as your drone flies, it doesn't change the color temperature in the recording, because I've noticed from before, if you're flying and you change direction, the auto white balance is going to kick in another color temperature, and that's because it's thinking that it's too yellow, I'm going to put this profile. So you can override that and just select one. I like to use the cloudy because of the yellow, more subtle warm color to it, but that's just me. You can choose whatever you want. In the picture mode, you can select, go back to fly. Once you select your picture mode on the top, you can select the settings for the picture mode. On the left top hand side, you've got JPEG 180, DNG, and JPEG. So JPEG 180 and DNG are fisheye pictures, so if you don't want fisheye, just select JPG. I use DNG so I can edit it in Photoshop afterwards. I have a preset for Photoshop which I'll put in the link. It's for Photoshop Lightroom, which will correct the orientation of the fisheye and also crop it and also make it look really good. So you can download that if you want. So these improvements to the software on the application makes it really convenient for you to fly and change between camera, video, and also adjust the video settings or the camera settings, the picture settings while you're flying, instead of popping out into a menu. Alright, at the bottom you've noticed you've got a V on the bottom left hand corner. That's your flight modes. You can switch between video mode, which flies the drone at a very slow, consistent speed to enable the best possible recording of footage. And when you switch it to S, that's in sports mode. That'll throw your drone out like a racing drone. Alright, let's go into the menu and see what settings we have. So we've got the same settings as before. We've got the extra selection for map types, minimap, show grid, hand launch, yes, Hand launch is a really fun thing to use now because it starts the motor up really slow, and as soon as you either lift your hand or drop your hand, any slight sense of movement from you will activate the motors to launch off your hand. But initially it starts up really slow, so you'll hear the little whine and the motor's going to start spinning, but not really fast. So that's really nice, and it's really cool. You'll get used to it. Alright, so your piloting modes, you've got the normal with the gyroscope directions, jog. I mostly use joypad. Ace is for your elevation and your rotation, and on the right hand side you've got your camera direction. But if you have an FC controller, you can control your camera with that. But I mostly just use joypad from the iPad, and if I need to adjust the camera, I'll quickly switch to Ace, adjust the camera, and then go back to joypad. Alright, for the piloting, you have your two menus, video and sport, and this is where you can adjust your parameters. For sport, to get the fastest speed out of the drone, I usually just max out the max inclination and max vertical speed. For the max tilt speed. Max rotation speed, I usually put this down to about 100 because it becomes really sensitive, so you can actually put your drone in a 360 and have it facing the same direction if you're not quick on the touch screen. But the drone goes really fast now. So once you've saved these settings, it automatically gets registered when you switch between video mode and sports mode. So we'll go to video mode, the settings for your video fly mode. Alright, now video, the default settings is, let's see what the default settings are. The default settings is maximum inclination 8 degrees, and so this is really slow flying, really steady, get you some awesome footage, but for me it's too slow. But you can adjust it however you want. Now let's go down to the safety menu. The safety menu has the return delay after disconnection. I don't leave this at 30 seconds because I'm paranoid, so I usually just put it at like the 10 seconds because that's I'm comfortable with that for 10 seconds. If it doesn't want to connect with me, it needs to turn around and come back. The max altitude, I usually set the max altitude depending where I'm flying. So if I'm going to a place where I have a height restriction, because I check the maps for local regulation on maximum altitude flying for the fly zones. So I set those according to the place where I'm going to fly. And your max distance, I usually just put it 2 kilometers because I'm cool like that. Geofencing, if you don't want your drone to go outside of these parameters, you can turn on geofencing. Alright, for your video settings, 720p, 1080p, standard high. The default settings is standard 30 FPS. So that's actually not too bad, but the compression on the video really isn't good at standard. So I use high video standard for my videos, and it comes out really nice, especially after the update. Now for the Wi-Fi, I put a password on it. It slightly reduces the range, but it gives me peace of mind, and I know that my drone is not going to get hijacked by someone else, because to break into WPA encryption is difficult. Alright, I hope you liked the video, and if there's any questions that you have, please write them in the comment section and I'd be happy to answer them as best as I can. So until then, be safe, happy flying.